everybody. Welcome back to another episode of God Built This podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 54. So as you can hear, I have a guest on with me today. This is my friend Alletia, one of my good friends here in Houston. So I'm excited to have her on. She always has strong opinions. She stands in them. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a great idea to have her as my podcast guest. So first I want to say thank you.
Yeah, well, can y'all tell I'm excited?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm like, okay, let me hit up Alletia to see if she's free. I know it's super last minute, but let me just ask, whatever. So it all worked
you
out.
shall receive.
Hallelujah. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so as we were talking in the pre-production,
super efficient.
Pre-production meeting at 8 p.m. So Kanye West. Now my podcast listeners already understand my disdain for him, my disbelief, and my feeling that he is exploiting the Black community yet again. What's your take on it? Because Jesus is King. His album came out. And I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm not knocking him if he truly is a believer of Christ, if he truly is a saved individual. That is your motto and it brings you peace, and that's great. I'm for that. But I don't believe it. I don't believe the shit. Like, I feel like he's full of shit. I feel like it was just a second ago he was wearing MAGA hats, and now and I'm not saying you can't be a Christian and do that, but it's just the legitimacy of his actions doesn't quite fit with me. So I'm just like, I'm not sitting well with it.
Mm-hmm. See, the biggest thing about Kanye that I've come across, like just on Twitter alone, which I kind of split half and half, Kanye has become, very just so ingrained in the culture of like what people champion is Black excellence. And once you have that, they don't want to take it back. And then he was with so much tragedy. So then, Black people super forgiving.
Yeah. And
the thing about Kanye is, regardless of his music, and it's kind of like the same thing with Trump, and people are like, oh, well, he's a nice person this amount of times, or he's not horrible to everybody, something like that. It's like the things you do that are horrible, they are hurting people, and you don't need to be under this disclaimer of a good person just because you might be good at one thing. What is the old saying, like, what's it called? Broken clock is right.
Twice a day. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so people take those twice a days because, and it's like but they're the ones who do that are like latching on something to keep them connected to him. They're like, just give me something that I can agree with you on. So he spits out these little half truths. So the thing with Kanye is, all the slavery thing, and I watched the video when he said it. He was dead ass serious. It was a long rant. It wasn't like a blip or a faux pas.
Right.
And then
it was no accident.
His little circus tour around. He waited with the whole this Jesus tour before when he had the gospel singers who he doesn't even feature on the album. I've heard. Yeah. I haven't heard the album, but he doesn't feature them on there. But he drugged them all around the way. Mm-hmm, but he only did those like, what do you want to call them, like evangelical revival, hood evangelical revival, at places like Wyoming and Utah. So I look at you look at motives.
Okay.
You have to look past, like, you have to match people's actions with their words. And you're like, okay, well, if it was really true that you really wanted, and it really feels like he's targeting the Black community. Mm-hmm. The one he just said, I don't know if you saw his interview with Big Boy.
Oh, I didn't watch it, no.
So there was clips. And he's talking about, Big Boy asked him a question about, do you care about the Black community doesn't, really, do you fuck with them like that? Because I don't really fuck with you. He's like, I'm not doing this for, your validation or whatever. But then Big Boy asked him, was like, well, do you care about what white Twitter thinks? He was like, well, I'm glad that that's a thing now, but yeah. And he goes on a rant on saying how the guy who's the founder of Twitter, he loves him because he comes over to his house and he helps him with contracts. That guy he's the founder of Twitter. He's not the Twitter environment that we're talking about. Yeah. He's not in the Twitter culture. But he said he cares about what white Twitter thinks, because he said he cares about what white Twitter thinks, and then he said he cares about the founder of Tom, whatever his name is. But he was so defensive about Black Twitter. I don't care. Actually, I think you do care. But he knows better that the audience that's going to be more receptive to him and accepting like he's changed into this Jesus is that white community, because they don't have the nuance. Even if they grew up in a Baptist church,
it's not the same as a black church, period.
So, which is why, because he would have had that same message he spread in Utah. I mean, the whole rally with the Trump hat. He didn't do all that at Howard. He said some couple of things at Howard.
I wish he would have did that in Howard.
Chicago, all those other places. Even the things that he said at Howard, people weren't even fucking with him. So he understands who to speak to. See, man, when you talk about Jesus, one of the biggest things you have to do, which is why mission trips exist, and which is why when you go to these evangelical, everybody picks their demographic, but you keep it consistent. You only did that on 2 stops, and you did them at predominantly white places. You sat there and told that man your job was to spread the word. It didn't say they spread the word to only people who want to listen. And that's what you're backing up, that this is why you made the change. You're standing in your truth. Then you would have stood in your truth in Chicago. You would have stood in your truth.
Period.
You would have stood in
your
truth.
That's truly your truth.
And it wasn't. So then it becomes you're about pandering.
Yes.
You're about pandering, and you are Kanye. You got to think about who he is and why he does things for splash, for controversy, for attention. He's the biggest narcissist. I honestly think, I don't even know if he's really diagnosed with bipolar at that point. It just fits people's narrative.
Look, he could have a couple of things. He could have a couple of things.
And then that's stereotypical, because then you have, you backed up this movie stereotype of what bipolar means and what mania means. Really, have you had mania? Let's go DSM. Have you had mania consistently for 6 months or more? Are you all those different things, like you're just doing things that people associate with bipolar, and now you're bipolar, because now it gives you another
I don't think he's
edge to
ever admitted to having a diagnostic.
He skirts around it, or he might have said something about, I don't like medicine, but we don't know what that medicine was for. We don't. It's the thing of, even if you had it, right? Like, he always does things because he needs to have a splash, because in his mind, the greats, what history says is true based on what we know from what has been written, they were crazy, they were wildly different. In the time that they were alive, they were not light, really, right? Like, they weren't, they had a fan base, but it was always this tension between admiration and what they perceive, what we would, if we read it now, perceive as jealousy, because they didn't understand their brilliance. And so, but he verbalizes it too much. He verbalizes.
He's obsessed with the white culture.
He's obsessed. He wants to be white. Steve Jobs and Michael D'Angelo and all those things. I was just
but
like, so
he
what
never
you're doing
references
is
a black successful person has a role model for him. He never, like, he doesn't revere black community as much as he does the white community. It's like, why is that? Where is this disconnection? He was, at one point, just like you said, he is known for his controversy. He has said, like, remember when Bush was in office, he said George Bush doesn't care about black people. That was, wow, you see a man in hip hop who's doing numbers. He was like up and coming back then.
He wasn't even at the peak.
Right. He could have lost a lot of support. He could have lost that platform, yet he still did that. And we saw him as, wow, he cares about the black community. He's standing for the people. And for him to now be this MAGA wearing Republican defendant, and it's like, stand with what you want. Okay, fine. People have their own politics, but you cannot now pander to the black community when you weren't standing for us just a moment ago.
The thing you say that, he brings that up in this interview as his golden point of, like, contention, that he is for the black community. I was the person that said that. Well, one, we all have noticed that people can change, and you need to model where he was at that point. His mother was still alive. If we're gonna go with this, with our version of what has changed Kanye, his mother's death, him moving into this polarizing family who does all these things for attention, that his change in accent, he doesn't talk the same anymore consistently, like all these things that have changed, right? And so, okay, you were that person, but why aren't you now? And where were the changes that led you to that path? And you have to acknowledge them. You can't say, well, because I said this thing, I'm still that same person. No, you're not, because you're not living the same experiences. You don't have the same influences around you. Those things have changed you. And so the thing with Kanye is, even if he's for real, you say, this is the way God has touched my heart and I'm changed, because that happens. We see that all the time, every day, with regular everyday people who used to be prolific drug addicts, whatever sin you want to say, and they overcome that sin. But you see major behavior changes in the way they talk, the way they approach, right? This Christ likeness. Kanye comes at, and he specifically targets Black America, because Black America, and this is the most frustrating thing even for me, because Black America will still fuck with you. You could be low down, whatever. But what they won't do while they fuck with you is pretend that they not saying your bullshit. They'll fuck. You could be bullshitting, and they be like, "I'ma still fuck with you, but you bullshitting." Like, and that's the thing that irked Kanye the most. The white from, and I'm always saying this, right, from our perspective, right, from what I've seen from my Twitter, they're willing to suspend the belief and actually believe. Black people will listen to this shit because they like, shit, I just want to listen to this shit.
Yeah. We like good gospel.
We like good gospel. Shit, that genuine kind of women kind of like that shit. But you still full of shit. Like, and Kanye don't want that. He can't have the no, I need you to believe I'm really, no, because if you really were, if you were coming from a Christ-like place, you wouldn't be one targeting just Black people, because Black people aren't even the ones. We're just normally the loudest, because people are so used to hearing our voice scream, we're being done wrong, and listening to it and catching on to that. And so he has to pay attention regardless if he wants to or not. And you're coming at them with this very condescending, you're already misogynist, this condescending, like, y'all are the sheep, you're enslaved, you're in shackles, if they would have thrown the net, the slave net.
You gotta move the other, like, why stand in the same position?
And the people who are following him are like, well, he wasn't talking about physical chain, he was talking about mental chain, slavery, and it's still the same thing.
It's still dangerous, it's still horrible
and it's
rhetoric.
False. It's historically false.
Right.
How do you think we sit up here on a podcast in this free ass room, in this free ass home with her job that she pays for, she ain't got to go through the back door for? Who do you think got that? This is only 2019, and I saw this quote that said, just because time passed does not mean that the issue that was once has solved or grown or been relieved in any way. But people get into that mind space, and it's just like, how do you think we got these things? By people who were mentally enslaved? So you're buying into what you're buying into, and you're calling a different name, is the laziness stereotype. When America has a very unique, the whole world has suffered slavery. It doesn't matter what type of culture, race, ethnicity, whatever you want to pinpoint the demographic as. But chattel slavery in America is specifically race-based. No other slavery was. You had Romans enslaving other Romans. It was more class-based. American wrote constitutional laws when slavery was abolished. Right? When slavery was abolished in these other places, they didn't write those laws because they looked like them. And even when they had Moors and stuff, they didn't write where your race, your hue of your skin made you illegal, made you inferior. That's why and it was the most gruesome, right? The most horrific, because of the type of grotesque beatings that they did just to get the slave, because it wasn't just out of need for motivation to work. It was actual cruelty. So chattel slavery is so different, that to have a people who have overcome that slavery and not be extinct by it, and then not only come through that, then they went through emancipation. Then they went through all these things. You still have the prison industrial system. It's still going on, right?
Jim Crow.
Then you go through Jim Crow. Then you go through civil rights. You have we're not talking about just one huge movement of overcoming. I mean, child slave was how many years?
It's
hundreds of years. We're talking about there's a movement every generation.
Every generation.
And then,
Black Lives Matter is the latest one that we could say. That's the movement, but that's still there's no,
it's just compounding sense. Because there's no okay, this movement has stopped. It's just diversion.
Like, oh, we got our justice, we got our peace. No, we're still fighting for it. We're still going through it. There's no, like, just how, like, the Jewish people, the Jewish community, they're able to build themselves up. They have such a great repertoire. A lot of people revere them and see, oh, they're successful, they're financially independent. You want to start a business, you got to have a Jewish friend, you got to have a Jewish accountant, you got to know what you're doing. But for the Black community, yet we don't have that. We don't have that yet, at least, but we don't have that. And there is still that struggle for us to build our own thing where we all support each other, but there's a lot of crabs in the barrel. And Kanye is a great example of a Black person who is not helping the community, who is harming us more than he's helping us, but he's thinking in his twisted mindset, no, I want you to see your mental empowerment if you just change your mindset. When it's like, no, that's a lazy way to think about it. Like, as if there weren't a Harriet Tubman, as if there weren't a Toussaint Louverture.
It's an accusation in it. It's saying that you already don't have that when you're not looking at, even if you look at the present, right? Yeah. People do this. Cause and effect happens for a reason, and history happens for a reason. I hate this whole, like, when it comes to black people, all of a sudden we have to forget history and we can only look at the present, and that's not how anything works. It's not how business works. It's not how, it's literally how, we would not have economics if we don't look to the past. That's literally how they do these things, right? And so that's how you can tell what's genuine and what's not. I automatically look at what are the topics that you try to push off the table. Oh, no, we can't look at history. We got to look at these 10 years. That's not how it works, because everything is compounded. We're talking about, because nothing is ever really solved, then you just have these issues that continually just proliferate through continued years, but under this guise of, you know, we have overcome. And it's like, no, we haven't. And if we have, we've only overcome for a few. And then you get into that mindset of like, okay, well, if a few, then you get to the bootstraps of it all. And a big difference between the cultures is like, in the Jewish community, had this too, right, with the Holocaust, right? It's very popular when you're trying to subjugate people. A popular way to do it is to devise them of their communities, devise them of their support. But what happened was, when the Holocaust was over, they were allowed to rebuild those communities safely in America, right? Black people, we are in America. They were never allowed to rebuild them safely.
And even when we did Black Wall Street, what happened to
that? They got bombed.
Boom.
Or rioted. Threatened. So people, that kills me. It's just like, when you say things like that, you haven't read, and you haven't even ventured to go beyond a soundbite. And if that's what if that's as most history you want to go to, that's fine. But when you have a status like he does, and you're spreading the gospel, right? Basically your opinion on Black life, and because you're such a prolific figurehead in Black culture, anybody that's not in Black culture that can't call BS is going to believe that that's harmful, because maybe not to you directly, but for those people who are in the spaces where regular Black people are, and they're trying to advocate for themselves, and they're trying to educate others, and you got these people who aren't in Black people that heard your dumbass on an interview, and they're saying, well, Kanye didn't. Kanye said that ain't true. Kanye said that y'all just lazy. Kanye said that y'all in the mental change. When this Negro had the nerve to sit here and talk about Democrats and
what he said about the Republicans, talking about
the Republicans
they were the first abolitionists.
So here's the thing: you really have to really be. I won't say that. A lot of people don't know sometimes.
Okay,
but I give you less chance to know because you have the access. That who doesn't know that the Democratic and Republican Party were actually switched?
Yeah. You
didn't know that?
Yeah.
So the Republican Party, you are correct. This is what we call a half truth. You are correct. But the Republicans that you're venturing now used to be their views used to be Democratic views. The party switched. What was it after Civil Rights Bill? I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson. I can't remember. Don't hold me to that. They switched. So who we have as Republicans, actually, the Democrats used to be right-centered, right-leaning.
Yeah.
And then the Democrats, where we have our modern-day liberalistic views, used to be called Republicans. And the fact that you didn't say that second part of it, though.
Yeah.
Because nobody...
all of that.
And then you're talking about to Black women who are the most... They vote in a block. They vote consistently. They're very educated, very
We
political.
create the change that we want to see.
And you're telling us condescendingly, well, the Democratic Party is out here just using you for your votes. You don't think people know that? You don't think people know that? The people who actually vote, because let's remind you, Kanye's never voted. He's telling you to vote and listen to a president he ain't vote for.
He never voted.
Right. So how you gonna talk about mental slavery? Were you a mental slave when you didn't vote? And running for president, because when it's your turn, the rules come into play. Now it's pay attention to the rules.
Bloop.
But you were rebellious and you was about that life and all that. You didn't vote for the person you championing for. I don't understand, and it makes it hard because when you do things like, say Kim Kardashian and she's working with these groups to get to really work on prison reform and stuff like that. Of course, people want those things, but they want them in genuine earnestness. They don't want them with this freaking lecture that you're now all of a sudden all be all. When people been on the streets, though, you get your name in the spotlight, but the people who are doing the work for you under your name are the ones who've been in these streets, getting these prison reform. You didn't just snap up, because money can go a long way, but the people you trying to get out of prison, which is why y'all don't hear about it for months later, it's those lawyers, those black women, those black men.
And that's not to discount Kim's successful efforts. It's not to say that. It's just, I want also for her team of people to be highlighted, and
that's what
it's not like, just Kim Kardashian. Do
that. We want you to do that. That's what you're supposed to do. I hate it. I hate how it's put like, well, she didn't have to do it. Well, really? Because I thought we're all humans.
Yeah, I'm proud. It makes me glad.
Only black people get people out of prison now. That's what she was supposed to do. It has nothing to do with it's because she's doing it. No, it's because every time she's quoted with doing something, now y'all come out and y'all want to have this lecture about how she's the angel and the goddess, and I'm reading another article about the team that actually did it, and I can understand as an intellectual that you need both. Sometimes you need notoriety.
Yeah.
You need star
to get the job done.
You get to pull it out. Baby,
and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that.
But stop with the holier than thou lecture about, okay, see, this is what Kim do, but what y'all doing? No. See, now you're gonna have to back up.
We all fight in different ways.
Just say, hey, look what Kim's doing. Period.
That's great. Keep on doing that. Awesome. I don't know, man. I feel like oftentimes there are, because you were saying earlier that, yes, there are black people who will still hold him accountable and be like, oh, I like the music, but Kanye, I'm looking through that shit, whatever. There are black people who still, like, they don't see past the gospel and they're just blinded by, wow, this is amazing. Let him praise God. Anyone can praise God. And that's not the point that I'm making. The point is,
Jesus King had nothing to do with Jesus.
It has nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus is
comments about Kanye.
He's in that box. He's fine.
Music, even though I heard the album is not his best.
I heard that too. I refuse to listen to it.
It has nothing to do with God.
It's about Kanye and his action and his motivation and his authenticity and the lack thereof to that.
And you attach it about Jesus when you know how, like you just said, the dangers of Christianity in the black community.
Yeah.
Right? We ain't even gonna
it's
tackle
so
that.
sensitive for black people when you talk about religion, when you talk about faith, when you talk about spirituality. That is in our essence. So when you have someone like Kanye West who is literally pandering to us, manipulative as fuck, and there are black people who are so blind to it. Well, no, let him praise. It's like, that's not the point. Look beyond that. He was just wearing a MAGA hat. Do you understand the symbolism in that?
I want you to criticize him for his blatant manipulation, because that's what it is. You at the very base, even if you're willing to say, you know what, I really want to step outside of it. I really want to see, because I can do that. I can say, you know what? Yeah, there's going to be people, despite his own motivations of what I think it is, because of the lack of the matchup with his actions and his words, right? And the way in which he's delivering this message, not in his music, in his interviews and talking about it, the condensation. You're not Christ-like when you come like that. You're not sitting out here saying, I want to bring people to Jesus, and then you're going on these rants about how people were mentally and stuff. That's not how. Who would come to Jesus like that?
No.
Like, that's the whole point of, like, just say millennials and that whole debate of millennials against church, because of that condensation. And
that's why.
So then,
absolutely,
how y'all gonna be mad at that in the church, and then the person who's actually doing the same thing, and then you're saying, well, no, he's doing a good thing. You just said it was a bad thing. You don't get to switch up because this person, you don't want to dislike this person. I personally don't believe him. And that's what it comes down to, because if we're talking about, is he for real that this is about Jesus? It's purely about Jesus. I don't believe you. Is Jesus might be sprinkled in there? Sure. Is it really about Jesus? I don't believe it. I believe it's about controversy. I believe it's about narcissism. I believe it's about
sales.
Another big boom, another big moment for Kanye. I believe it's about him trying to figure out this identity he's trying to create within himself to make sure he's in history books, because that's the thing, and that's what I think Kanye reveres about Donald Trump. The craziness of him, that he's even legitimately a president.
That's why
he's done everything. He's defiled everything of the office, and I'm not even like super like Capitol Hill here. And he still has followers. He still has people believing him. Someone like Kanye is attracted to that.
Yeah.
Because it shows you're infallible, you're untouchable. That's what he wants. Of course, he admires him for that. It has nothing to do with him being in politics. Of course, you're able. When you admire somebody, don't you overlook? Don't you let them habitually lie and stuff?
He said that when he met with him.
He's who he wants to be.
Yeah.
He's successful in
He's
that
like,
way.
you're like the father figure I never had. A white man.
And he was talking about his daddy on the interview.
And his father is well and alive. Like, he's alive and well.
He said something about, he was talking to his daddy about the music. And while they was riding in the car, I was like, wait, this is the first time I ever heard you say something about your daddy. And that might be on me, y'all. I'm not a Kanye super stan. I don't be reading interviews from him. But only reason I really watched it because I was like, I don't want to have that taste in my mouth where I'm scrolling, I see your name and I'm like, ugh. It's the same thing with R. Kelly. Do y'all think I wanted to dislike R. Kelly? That nigga's foul.
Damn.
I love his music. But
hard.
he's a foul person. And yes, there are levels to foulness. Everybody has their dirt, but there's levels to it to where you have to say, okay, y'all, is it really that hard for you to walk away? Because what happens is reinforcement. All these streams, all this, you're not educating, you're not helping him, you're just helping him miseducate hundreds of people. And it's not even hard, it's not even like it's like some convoluted mess. What he's saying is direct. You can literally just do a Google search. Hey, is the Democratic and Republican Party board, did they switch at this time? Like, you can find the answer. And that's important for you to know because a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. And that could have been his opportunity to teach the people.
And then we would be sitting here saying, like...
That could have been a teachable moment.
If Kanye wanted to turn into Professor X, I would have been here all for it. Even if you had... Because you can be passionate right now, because I'm just naturally passionate. Kanye's a very naturally passionate person.
Yeah.
If his passion and even some of his condescension towards people is from... He just really wants them to wake up. Like, he really feels like they're not listening. They don't know. That would have been backed up by facts. Because then I would have been able to, me personally would be able to understand it. It's like, you know what? He's just trying to get it all out. But you can tell he's done his education. You can tell he's done his research. You can tell he's really studied this. And he's really trying to become like a student of it so he can now educate the masses.
Educate
but that's
those
not what he's coming. He's
who
coming
don't
with
know.
sound bites that just are so blatantly wrong. Like, and embarrassing. How are you not embarrassed by that? Because it don't matter what you do. Like you said, like you still black. And I'm sorry if that makes you feel trapped. And I honestly feel like that's one of the things he feels trapped by this blackness because he wants to be this omnipotent thing that's not. And he's really struggling with like his color is boxing him in, even though he was aware of that it would.
I feel like with Kanye, I would be open to hearing him or watching him in an interview just say, look, I said a lot of foul things. It was uneducated. It was dangerous. And I recognize my faults. And I want to apologize to anyone who I've harmed or miseducated along the way. Here are my thoughts and have it well refined.
And here's what I'm trying to get to, even if I'm not getting to it perfectly.
And I will be open to hearing that because, okay, you're human. You make mistakes and you could trip over your words. But I feel like he is so, like, he believes what he believes and he feels like his mindset is the correct mindset, and that is what I have a problem with. And I feel like the track that when you talk about condescension, he has this. There was a clip from Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and he was saying how he doesn't want Kim to be wearing what she wears anymore. He wants her to kind of cover up. You're my wife. He's saying how, look, I have my friends who are in the industry. They're showing me pictures of you, and I feel uncomfortable because you're my wife. And it's like, oh, but you. Since when did you feel this way? Because you was with Amber, whatever her name is, but bald head Amber wearing hardly anything. Amber Rose, that's her name. Kim, like you have a track history of being with women who are, controversial with their physical appearance. So she was like, oh, my Instagram. So she was like, ooh, yeah, you have. Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry.
You have people who he has been with who are physically attractive and very sexy and very out there with it. And now he's suddenly being condescending about it. Like, I don't want you to be wearing
I really
that.
wish you would have watched this interview, because he said one of the biggest sound bites taken from that Big Boy interview is he saying, you know, Instagram, social media is you know, rotting the, you know, the family, which that's one of the clock is broken, but it's right twice a day, right? It's not untrue, right? Social media is corroding a lot of things, right? But then he was like, because, you know, he was like, now Instagram got your bitch. Instagram got your bitch. And you're really he's talking about himself. This came right after that show aired.
Oh, that's
Instagram got your bitch. And people were like, well, how do y'all know how Kanye talks in the third person? He's talking about himself. Yes, but see, you don't get to, and maybe I can suspend myself and say, you know, maybe he just really just had this aha. But it just, his ahas just seem very disingenuous, like, now all of a sudden you the father know-it-all, like, no, Instagram got your
now all of a sudden.
Your whole persona in life, your identity, you would have none if it wasn't for social media. Like, if you stopped right now and you focused on music because you're saying social media is the evil, we depend on it too much, I don't see you pulling back. You're not leading by example, other than being misogynistic towards your wife, who the reason why you were enamored with her, and if we're to believe the rumors, cheating while you was with Amber. Yeah. And the reason why you were with Amber, because who did they get you? They got you on mentions, they got you on stories, blogs, Instagram, social media. Like,
suddenly social media and the internet is not evil when it's not abiding to his agenda. Right. But because
his agenda now is to be popular by saying those things are wrong. He's a contrarian. Pure, black and white, down to the notch.
He's so full of shit.
But it's so
and even that damn
typical
Shade Room post I saw, I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently he was like, was strongly suggesting his crew to not have premarital sex because that's not God's way.
Walked his ass about the music.
Nigga, you don't get the fuck. Like,
here's the thing though, like, but and that is a hallmark of some type of like conversions in Christianity, right? It has to be cold turkey. Y'all stop having y'all can't stop drinking. But the thing is, while he was doing it, he cussed. Cause and he's not supposed to cuss no more, right?
Right.
So, but it quickly went out the window. Cause he made a joke about it. Because for him, he can sidestep the rules. Cause he's above it. He's still above it all. He's still not in the middle of it. He's still not held responsible to the same standards you trying to set, because really only reason he's saying it because he wants it to say Kanye said these things. Not that they are true, not that they are helpful, not that they are the way that will really lead us to freedom. Because someone else said it and it was true and it would heal us right now. If he didn't say it, he would be against it. And that's how I feel. It has to be that he said it and what he said was right and led to something positive, but it's not. He was like, Instagram got your big. Instagram got your big. Can I say bitch? Bitch. And it was very weird.
How did God feel about that, Kanye?
He laughed about it, and that's why I'm looking at it. Just like,
I'm so sick of him.
So you're not really serious. You're not really serious.
I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him. I don't believe it. I'm not falling for it. And I can't wait to see his next act. What is his next move? What is this next thing that he's going to do to continue to pander to us? And I'm just trying to see so I could be ahead of it and like act against it right now. But I don't know.
Self-care for me has been like to just skip over because I found that mostly guys, and it's a few women in there, mostly guys. And I mostly follow black men, so maybe. And there was a couple of. It's always all the white men that I saw agreed, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's the greatest guy." Girl, they start comparing him to Kirk Franklin, so that was the big thing on Twitter. They start comparing Jesus King to anything Kirk Franklin 2019. We're not even talking about primo Kirk Franklin.
No.
And so black Twitter has
Kirk Franklin.
You gotta be out your
you gotta be fucked. You got me fucked up
Kirk
because first of all, right.
He one of the cornerstones.
Okay.
What you mean, Shirley Caesar?
You look up gospel, you see Kirk Franklin. Period.
It's the Clark sisters.
But my thing is, with Kirk Franklin, he actually recognizes his choir, the new project, the new kid. Like he names them in his record.
Kirk Franklin, New Nation Project.
New Nation Project. Yes.
You don't. Yeah. That's why that used to confuse me when I was growing up. Like, first of all, Kirk Franklin's not on none of these songs except How is this? It's his record. A career of making gospel choirs lit. That's it. Kirk Franklin be make you one rap line.
And you make that.
And that's all you hear. Kirk ain't doing the chorus. He's not doing all that.
He'll do like a 4-sentence intro, and then you'll hear everybody else singing.
His words come down like Jesus from above, and then you back out, and then you got.
But Kirk Franklin's gospel though.
because you want to talk about genius, right? You want, and that's why they're comparing, right? Because we're talking about not just the final product. We're talking about the production of it. The genius of how to deliver something unique in this space, because gospel, I mean, to be able to really do something in gospel like that, with all the way gospel changed and how millennials took to it. Gospel means so much to people, literally, just like most music does. Kirk Franklin cornered that market into to even suggest like, I honestly don't think Kanye is much as a genius that everybody want him to be. I think he's very good, but as far as like Warhol level, like genius, I don't think so. And
he wants to get there so bad. I also just feel like
I'm wondering if that's y'all fault. It ain't my fault because I ain't told him that.
Yeah, that's
I wonder
the
if
thing.
it's y'all fault is because y'all made him believe he was this untouchable Jesus, because what he was doing in the moment was so fresh. And it was consistent to a point, but then now it's just like I feel like he just went off the rails. Like he has to be this. He has to be in that history book. It has to be. You already in the history book.
I feel like with a lot of Black people, when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to following the word and following God's way, however people want to name it, there's a lot of people who are easily manipulated and are easily maneuvered to just say yes and not question, not challenge, and to just automatically forgive. And it brings me to the whole Amber Auger situation when the brother of Bohem Jean, how he forgave her. And yes, that's a personal choice and people could do whatever they please with that. But I feel like oftentimes when we think about Christianity, a lot of people who are Christians feel like they have to be a doormat. It feels like they have to just not say an opposite opinion, and because of that you have oppressors, you have white oppressors, whomever it is, they are just continuing to oppress us because we're not challenging them, we're not staying in our anger.
Negative reinforcement, and that's why there was such a concerted effort.
I forgive you, I love you. If Bohem Jean would have wanted you to just accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and say, like, actually, he would have wanted to be alive.
Because Jesus was. Do y'all not know the Old Testament Jesus?
Girl.
Y'all ain't know Jesus was flipping over tables.
Thank you. People are acting like Jesus never was mad.
Girl, what you mean?
So bad.
He wiped out the world. Eve done cursed us all because she ain't listened. And y'all don't think Jesus was for justice? Jesus said, this is what I said. I said what I said. You're going to do what I said, and you got to go.
Period. And this is what happens if you don't do what I say.
You were supposed to forgive that man at your house. You weren't supposed to forgive. And it only matters because of the whole parade of them trying to get attention on that case. Right? Because everybody should, you when it's your personal family, you have a right to grieve how you want to grieve, because whatever's going to get you to that next next moment to live again,
totally
and
fine.
To be able to deal with that grief, you have absolutely right. I don't care if you kiss that man's feet. But as far as when things go into a public, it's no longer just about you because it holds implication, right? Because it changes people's views, their mindsets, their actions. And so now there has to be a critical analysis of it. What that did, it didn't come off as a show of forgiveness. It came off as you can literally open someone's door, shoot them while they're
mistaking it for your own.
You get a hug from a judge, and you get a hug from the brother, and the evilness of it, right, which is in place. There's a reason why we label things the way we label them. So it says we should never do this. That this was evil, so no one ever does it again. Mm-hmm. But when you trample on that, and now you've recategorized it into this fake faux pas forgiveness, which I don't even think they were doing. They were just grieving the best way they knew how. I don't think they were thinking about the perception and the impact that it would have on how people behind them, that people that were murdered for less or for more would be handled in the justice system, would be impacted by. I don't think they were thinking about it, which nobody can fault them, but that's what it comes down to. Now this horrible thing that was truly evil and truly inconceivable becomes like well, I mean,
just forgive me.
It's normalized.
Forgiveness is key.
There's a reason why there needs to be, and I'm not trying to say people need to sit and hate, right?
No.
But there's a reason why there's negative emotions attached to certain situations, because they keep people from repeating certain atrocious acts. Like slavery, like there's a reason why people lose their jobs for saying the word nigga. Like, is that really the word saying something? If a person says nigga to me right now, am I really about to crumble and die? Mm-hmm. It is not the word, it is the implication of their actions that can be followed by the word from historical reference.
And I've said this before.
Because we are not too far removed.
It's about holding people accountable. You did something wrong. You did an injustice. I'm bringing justice to that by holding you accountable rather than just immediately going to this forgiveness mode. And I think, of course, it's a personal choice. You got to do whatever works for your healing. But because this was such a sensationalized case, it was just so dangerous for this to be publicized and for white people to see yet again another... Okay, let me give you a hug for that little murder you did. You didn't mean it. It was an accident. Yeah, you was on the phone. You was distracted. And yeah, you had little racist type of tweets or text messages to your man. And yeah, you was only worried about your job after you realized he was dying. But look, people make mistakes.
Like, forget the evidence. And that's the thing that backs it up too. All of these ridiculous things that you have to tell a story around a story around a story to make it okay, right? Like,
make it we're
talking about this wasn't some obscure case where no one can really see the motive, right? We had text messages, we had witnesses.
Okay, witnesses. We have a neighbor that suddenly got killed.
How many days? Like 13. Shoot. And now they're appealing the case. And do you not think her sentence is going to be lighter if she even goes back to jail at all? And it ain't because of just his murder. It's because of what happened, the hugs, the forgiveness. Now they get to enter that into evidence and say, well, if the people who this harmed the most say that this person should be forgiven, and forgiveness doesn't necessarily just mean free of judgment. You can be forgiven and still have to sit and still have to be accountable for the harm that you caused people. I don't understand where the justice system to black folk, they understand very well. People get forgiven all the time. They still got to sit behind the bars.
Yeah.
Into that 5 to 10 run close. So even if that was the way y'all wanted to play it, it's not consistent. And that's how you know it's a lie. That's why the logic don't match up. Because if it was that way, if it was hey, we forgive you, we understand now in hindsight, a reasonable person could say that, okay, this is a weird situation we never came across before. But you know what? Now we're really going through it. Society decides, okay, we're going to forgive you. If they apply that logic to the cases that had a less degree of harm as murder, and those people were free, then we wouldn't be having this conversation
at all.
Because now we have decided as society, this is a new rule. This is how society has viewed compassion, and this is how we're going to, apply justice. You apply it across the board, but that's not what's happening. When you have to make up these sideshow rules and just apply to one specific case, that's manipulation. And it's deceitful, and it's just, and you have to call it what it is. Like, if black people don't do nothing but else, they're gonna call something what it is. And yes, there are moments where it's like, okay, we need to do more than that too. But at the first time, you have to do the very first thing.
Bare minimum. What is the bare minimum? You gotta make people aware that, hey, she's a murderer. You still murdered my brother in cold blood. He was drinking. And I feel like because Bohem Jean, he has such an impeccable lifestyle. He's a stand-up good black man. He went to church. I think he was an accountant. Had his own place. Smile. Like, nice, good, doesn't look scary. I feel like that there should be no reason why there should be bad reports. Like, he deserved it, or he should have never banged on the door.
Though, after she killed him and they had to ruffle through his apartment while they did that. Because she shot him on the couch.
But it's just so sad that we have to come to a place in the world, in society, in the media, to have a clean black man so he could be seen as, he really was a victim, rather than
he was sitting down eating his ice cream.
He was just a victim. Even if he did time in jail for 5 years for whatever,
he could have been a rapist. Let's get something really evil. He could have been a rapist. He could have just got through raping somebody. He's sitting eating ice cream.
Right. In this instance, he was the victim. So whether he had a great, clean record before or not, that shouldn't even matter. Like, we shouldn't have to come to a place in our world where we have to question, well, he did weed when he was 17, so he was in the wrong tracks, and maybe he didn't need to be living in that nice environment.
You know what people are trying to do when they do that? They're trying to establish cause and effect. They're trying to say this is how your character was built, so obviously this is a person with this type of character. But it's funny because when you talk about slavery and all the other cause and effect, and history no longer apply. It's just we're talking about the present.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. The logic you just tried to establish was that someone's history impacts who they are right now, and we have to take that in consideration when we're talking about motives and how they and what they would have done, because we can't hear from their mouth, or even if we do, to establish, are they telling the truth? But when you're talking about polarizing, especially when it relates to black people, all of a sudden, what, that happened? Y'all talking about things that happened so long ago that aren't relevant, and it just doesn't make sense. And you just have to, that's when you have to just be like, okay, this is nonsense. We're just not going to do that. And wrapping it back around to Kanye, I think that's one of the reasons why there's this annoyance. And you can see it in the interview where he tries to like laissez-faire, be like, I don't care about black people validation and all that other stuff. And I was like, one, you can't escape it. He said black people don't run culture, which first of all, we know is a lie. Okay, you wouldn't even have to hear black people speak or language. Forget language. Look at fashion. Look at we do establish we are American culture, right? And so when he said that, and then he was like, he was just like, I don't care about what black people say, but you do.
Period.
And I'm not even saying that you have to. This isn't even a Kanye has to care about what black people have to say, and he has to be all about black people. You should be about all people, right? This is about the disingenuousness of you trying to say that you shouldn't be stuck in a cage or stuck in, glued to this one demographic, and he's trying to make it seem like he has to be on the whims of our needs and what our likes and dislikes are. But then you turn around, and this is why Big Boy asked the question, and he asked it with a smirk. And he was very smart about it. He was like, because he was like, so what about white Twitter? Do you care about what they think? And he was like trying to hold in a laugh. And this dummy was like, well, yeah. Well, hold on. I thought it didn't matter being a slave to one demographic, or I thought it was about humanness.
He has a mental disconnect. I don't think he understood. Maybe he didn't get that joke in that moment. Maybe, I don't know.
He wants attention. It's a behavioral thing. It would be no different from a kid who was in a classroom, right, acting up, saying whatever he knew could say to get attention somewhere. And black people we are sensitive folks. We got to talk about.
Look, Kanye,
and he knows how to rile us. And sometimes I do like the worst thing. What people need to do, right? If we're talking about what would cause real behavior change, silence.
Yeah, but
Black
here we are. It's been a while.
We don't know how to be silent.
But
so
I'm gonna be silent right now and switch gears because I'm tired of Kanye. Until next time. So there was a recent study. I don't know if it was recent, but I recently found out that apparently single black women, or maybe it was just single women, but since we're black, let's just add black.
Let's just
add that to the study.
That's the variable.
Add that to our research.
Us out, but shit, just sneak us in there.
We're here. So single black women are the happiest group of women. And to add to that, women who date down. So not just that group of people, but also a group of people who are women who date down. And down has in, maybe you have your PhD.
Social and economic.
Like your man, got his GED. He's doing okay, but you're doing greater social economic wise. You're climbing that social ladder. And I just think that's interesting. Like, first, let's just dive into single black women are the happiest. Are we the happiest? I don't know. What does that mean?
I want to know, and I love, my background is research. I'm like I live for some academic peer reviewed journals. Okay,
that's cute.
So just because it's really how I learned how to really read in college. Everything had to be academic peer reviewed. So I just developed a fondness for them because I was able to learn how to read them. And so and they're interesting because you got to catch how science ingrains these biases in these studies and statistics, right? And so when I'm like, I want to see what type of variables they had in that study, like what age range were these black women that are single? Are we talking about older women? Are we talking about 18 to 25? Because in other stories, maybe, and I'm pretty sure they're probably related, because researchers, even if they're not using and ingraining other research in their research, the fact that they even did this research means they're familiar with the other research in the same topic range. That for all women, right, if they're in the more millennial age band, that's true. And that has to do with the more autonomy women are having, the actual exercising of the women's rights that women have had for a while now, but really being able to stand in that and be like, you know what, I might be single for a while. Or I'm not using, like women who, like such as myself, I wasn't raised to think like, in order to really survive life and have a happy life, I'm going to have a partner. I was raised to live like you have to make sure you can provide that life for yourself and still get a partner, right? The partner wasn't left out. It was just like I couldn't depend on that, right? So, and women really like crafting their lives that way to make sure, like, they're getting careers that can be sustainable if they never have somebody else to live with them. And that's why that trickles down to why there's fewer babies being born, because women are choosing more careers that are, a lot more arduous,
demanding,
and that they have to be focused, and people still ain't trying to provide daycare. So, they got to make these choices. So I would venture to guess that they're talking about women who have to be 35 and under, maybe 40 and under. It is not older women, just because of purely generational. The thought process is
I don't think it would be older. I think it would have to be around the age of, like maybe late 20s, in the 30s. I also feel like there is now an agency over our body. We are more in control of our body. We are more in control of our sexuality. We are more in control in the open too. There is no shame in us being, period. And in the past, it used to be very shameful to have more than one partner. Never mind partners. It used to be very shameful. And there used to be this dehumanizing of women, black women in particular, to be sexual, to be open, and to be a casual dater one time, or maybe to not be interested in a serious relationship right now, or whatever the case is. And now I feel like there is more of that confidence for black women to just be. If being right now is to be single and live your full life, go out on dates with different men, so you choose, go out on trips and not have to be going with a person in particular. You go on solo trips. I feel like now there's
buy a house by your house. Most of my female friends who have houses, they don't have husbands.
You're
not waiting to.
We're not waiting anymore.
To reach those milestones. And here's the funny thing. In my master's degree, it was this white lady. She was my main professor, and she's the one that really got me heavy into. I was doing my thesis. She was actually my thesis advisor, and she just asked me randomly one day. She was like, "I'm doing this research on women and social dynamic assignments," and she was looking at older women. And she noticed a trend where black women, who are the most educated group of people, period. Yeah. Right? Regardless of, now that on the side of that, a lot of them go into fields that aren't necessarily the most compensating, right? But they're still the most educated. And she was finding how, as they're getting older in their 60s, they're so engulfed in poverty. And she wasn't understanding why. Because academic success is supposed to be linked, and it is linked still heavily, but not as, now we're seeing like it's not as intricated, and you get a degree, you're going to be uber successful, but it's still very heavily, the correlation is still very heavily linked. You get an upper education degree and you're supposed to be not homeless, period. And I didn't even have to answer. I was just like, just looking at my own life, I was just like, well, because black women usually bear the brunt of caretaking for all these other family members. So you think about, say, just a regular, let's say a man, even a black man, we'll take a white man since they're, we use them for everything. And they did a degree, they only have to worry about building and lifting themselves up, and then once they get a family, their immediate small family. Black women, especially black women, especially the oldest of the black women, have to take care of, we're not even talking about just their husbands, right? Because that ties into like black women marrying down. We're talking about their moms and their families,
Yep.
first generations.
Yeah.
They're having to carry all these people on them. So that money that they're getting,
send money back home.
Is not right. And if they're first generation and their families are in another country, and that money is getting spread so thin, they're not being able to build wealth. They're not even being able to really chase their dreams.
Because we never had the opportunity to have generational wealth.
Yeah.
So it is easier for a white person to build and care about themselves and to do so without any guilt, because there's no family member really needing them to support me.
Yeah,
hey,
I gotta take care of all these people. What you mean?
Yeah.
Like, they were counting on me, and now I got this $65,000, $70,000 job that if y'all got jobs on here, okay, and y'all know how those taxes work, and you're taking it out, and they're the most educated, so they probably have the most student loan debt. So because they didn't come from wealth, right? So you're thinking about all these things that are like hindering them, and she couldn't understand. She was like, well, how are they still poor? That's literally just, I don't understand. I was just like, well, you're not.
Bitch!
She genuinely was confused. We're talking about a seasoned researcher. We're talking about she got grants for
Let me show you my account. I can't just ask daddy
for. She might take care of her mom or her dad when she gets older, but you talking about siblings, able-bodied.
Yeah.
You talking about and your mom and your one parent. Okay. That's if they sick. Like, that's when they're used to like it coming in and them having to like share resources. But by that time you hear if it's more of like, if it's like a white couple, they move their parents in their house, and they've already established those goals, so it still might not be even the same type of hardship. Like, she might not even have had the money because she's out here bailing somebody out or helping somebody do something and reach their dreams to be able to get the house yet, or to get those goals that we say, like our standard of like wealth building, getting a house, getting equity, getting, like paying off debt. Like she doesn't have the opportunity to do that. So the segue into women who date down being happy, I feel like I understand it if the man is still doing everything that women are looking for. I won't say they're supposed to, right? The traditional, because as most as we talk about women living their truth and provide, a lot of women we are still very kind of like gender oriented as far as like who's supposed to do who.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Like, as much as we're more flexible and like, all right, well, if you're not doing that, then all right.
I guess it's on me.
But provide safety, emotional safety, physical safety. So, okay, oh boy got a GED, but if he coming in with a good, there's still trade jobs that make a lot of money.
Yeah,
People who pick up trash, 55, 60K, like those things together, you can 60 and 60, it's 120,000. You can have a low middle class life with that if you don't have a whole bunch of other debt crowding you down. And then, because we got to look at what are really the barriers to the happiness. Right? It's usually financial.
Your man, he has to be, at least if you're going to date down, I think it's important for the man to be comfortable in who he is, to be confident who he is, and to know, okay, yeah, my woman, she is making X amount and I'm making X amount, and that's the difference there. But I hold it down in the house. Our kids respect me, respect her too. I take care of her, I provide her.
See, I don't even
with
understand
security.
Why women having that much money would deride all those things, right? Like erode those things. Like me making $120,000 and you making $70,000. How does that automatically, in their minds though, it
because
automatically
for
correlates
so long,
to lack of respect.
Yeah, when you think about
the bills
history,
get paid. Women paid the bills in the house.
But when you think about history, it's been for so long the men making that large amount and the woman feeling, oh, because he's making that large amount, I am protected. Now, when the woman is making that large amount, the man sometimes will feel like, well, what is my role? I can't really. This is really the money that you're bringing in. What money am I bringing in? You may be bringing in money, of course, but it's not as much. So now they feel like now their identity is a little scarred. Who am I? What's my place here? What can I do? Do I just give you the dick and leave, or what is it? So
the lack of happiness actually has nothing to do with the money at all. The lack of happiness has to do with your attachment to how money, and people, everybody is identity is affected by their financial status.
Absolutely.
It's not just men at all.
Absolutely.
Right? But you, when you're aware of that and then you start to act in a way that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, like how are you as a man acting because your wife, right? We're talking about shared money anyway, right? Like your wife is making more money, and are you now acting in a way that's causing unhappiness in the relationship? Are you being harsher to try to establish a more dominant effect because what? Instead of coming to you for the lunch money, little Jimbo came to your mama first, little Dante.
Who is Jimbo?
Because here's the thing I found though. Women, and studies show this, women are the financial caretakers. But when we're talking about actually paying the bills, knowing how much things cost, your grocery shopping, anything
spreading
financial,
it out evenly.
they're the ones who take care of it anyway. It doesn't matter where the money, your money came from your paycheck. They got your bank account information. That's how they know what's in there because they pay it. So Lil Dante was coming to her anyway.
And that's why I don't believe Teresa Giudice didn't know anything about Joy. To bring it back to Real Housewives of New Jersey, to anyone who listens, that I feel like she knew. She's trying to act like she didn't know. No, but she knew.
We didn't know because we also equate. We were taught to equate. People are raised still in 2019 to equate. Financial security means happiness.
Yeah.
A man's financial security means happiness. Even and I think that's part of the reason too. Like, do men really care that much about what a woman does for a job like women do? If they have what they're doing, what they want to do, you got to engineer it. Does he really care that you need to be an engineer too? But let it be a woman engineer, then nigga got to be an engineer. He got to be an engineer or something higher, right? Like, am I lying?
Nigga, like, you better be a plastic surgeon.
Like, she could be like, I'm a see it. I'm a what is a LVN or something? You know, something people would consider lowly that I don't at all. But that doesn't come in that much money. You making maybe $30,000-$40,000. He gonna be like, all right, well that's just an extra $30,000-$40,000. Black women, I'm gonna say black women, like, who you looking for? What you got 3 degrees? He gotta have 3.5. He gotta have 3. I'm an engineer. He has to be.
Sir, are you going back to
mechanical.
school? Are you going back to school to get your other degree?
I don't necessarily believe that because I've watched people and I know people who are in relationships with all those bells and whistles and they be on my line.
Really?
Unhappy. And here's the thing.
But why
it really
though?
Because at the end of the day, when all that, nobody really cares about that except the outside. But when you with your partner, it's just you.
That's real. That's
just you.
Yeah.
You coming home to the stress about this well-paying job that you hate.
Right.
I used to talk to this dude, and he was a consultant for one of the biggest consulting firms in DC. Hated his job. He was trying to escape to become like a motivational speaker or something. And I'm not saying that as a slight. I'm just saying as far as like looking at the pay. Like he had a guaranteed,
very well stable position.
On the press, people loved him at work.
Wow.
He hated it. So you're coming, and that's what we would talk about all the time, right? Like I used to be like,
and so there's that stress coming home that you now have to deal with as the woman. And say if y'all were married, y'all were living together. Now you have to also deal with that, and it's like, oh well, would I rather give that up and just have my man work a job that he loves so he could come home and be the happy man that I know he can be? We're
equating this happiness to the things that we do that other people can see.
Yeah.
But what really matters is the things that nobody else can see, the things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. You got to get up and go to work. You got to do the same sort of type of work. It ain't the brunch. It ain't the brunch highlights, right? The things you got to come home to. Y'all both coming home from a job that you hate, and it's kind of like at the end of the day, I learned like, okay, I want to marry a doctor. Well, accidents happen all the time, very frequently. What if something happens to his hands? Can he be a doctor anymore? And then if he, you know how much energy and time someone spends to create a career like that, and it becomes your identity. And I know that like career is a big identity afflictor for me, and so it's for that type of career, if they can't do that thing anymore, how they change as a person and how that can affect. And so it's like, okay, yeah, it matters to me that we both can provide for each other, because to me, when you're in a relationship, things become intertwined. It don't matter who bank account it comes out. This is me.
It
doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
If I take $5 from my savings account and I got $5 from it's still $5. It's still about both my $5. Like we play this mental game of like, oh, I'm gonna put this amount here, I'm put this amount here.
It's now separate.
I got $2,000 in savings, but I got $3,000 in debt. Do you really have it though?
Yeah.
You know, like if you were doing, you know what I'm saying? So it becomes like this mental Jenga, and it's just like that's not where their professions are not where the happiness is. But if someone were to ask us, if someone on the outside wants to say like, oh, what does he do or what do you do? That's when it becomes important, because now it feels like it's a status
and you want
thing.
it to look good. You want to impress your parents. Maybe they're the ones who you need that validation from. Oh yeah, dad, mom, he has his master's, he has his business, he has this and that. It's like, well, but are you happy? Is he happy? I just want us to get to a place in society where we don't have to like adhere to the bells and whistles. We don't have to like it's just really sad though. But like
it's gonna be like freaking Hunger Games, right? When they dressed all up, because
I'm sick of it. Like I would love that we all could like work our passion and get well paid for it, and not slave
our
into it.
Consumerist society is not built like that.
I
just want
system.
balance. I want more
it's
balance.
The system.
And I want more people to have more. And I say more people. I include myself, right? Like when you really step back and think about even the small amounts of happiness, like the minutes to minutes, the day by day, like. Not everybody can do what they love, but can you not do something that you hate? You know, like can we like start there? Like,
but what if what you hate is bringing you the income to have that lifestyle?
What do people do? They offset it. Okay,
so,
this income is bringing me money. I hate this job. This income because it's relieving some other type of stress. People don't just stay in misery if they're not getting something for it. You have people. We'll take a case and say, because logic is logic. A drug addict. And this is how we classify, right? It's my former psychotherapist coming in. It's how we classify, right? Impairment. Does someone really have a problem? And it comes down to the impairment. And there's certain spheres we concentrate on. We concentrate on your work sphere, your social life, your family, and just your health. And there's levels of impairment to where you are literally impairing. You're purposefully, you know that this is happening. You're impairing yourself. You lost your job. You lost your wife. But you still in the do crack. You went to jail 5 times. What is the crack doing for you that you can't stop? Because all these things, all this misery that you accumulated to get this one thing that's harming you, you have to look at what it's helping.
It's escapism. That's how you say it. Yeah, escapism.
And that's where true recovery comes from, when they can identify, okay, this is what the crack is doing. This is the bomb that is put on. This is the rooted issue. And once they figure that out, then that's how people can turn the corner and then get their life back on track. So most of the things when people say they hate something, they're still doing it, is because it's solving an issue internally, externally, that even though there's all this misery over here, this is something that they care about, and that money hitting like nothing else is working. And that's generally, and that logic can be applied to any type of money, sex. It really doesn't matter. I don't know what those women. I want to say that those women who are happier with men who aren't making the most money, they're not focused on money, because together the money that they're both getting is enough to provide for their needs. Yeah, like their family's being taken care of.
And here's the thing: money. A lot of people say, "Well, money doesn't mean happiness. Money doesn't equal happiness," and that's not necessarily true. I mean, I think it's half and half. Like, money could sure help to bring that happiness in. You know, like when I don't have to stress about how am I gonna pay this or how am I gonna pay that? How am I gonna stretch this $150 for the next 2 weeks until I get paid again, to have like all of these things that legitimate people who do have these degrees, who do have all of the status, there's still poverty that we're still trying to break out the cycle from. So when we go back to your white professor who was kind of just lost about, well, how can how are there still people who are so successful, these black women who are so successful, and yet they're in poverty? It's the system. It's the system. You could have all these great degrees. You could have these prestigious jobs, but you don't come from a generational wealth. You don't come from a family that you could just like, oh, Dad, I'm running short. Could you just loan me this, or could you just give me this, or whatever it is? You have to kind of figure it out. And while you're figuring it out, you're pinching pennies. You're pinching pennies.
People don't take into
and
account
money does help.
Issues like, especially when we're talking about generational. We're talking about, okay, you're poor. And if you're poor, you're probably unhealthy. And if you're unhealthy, you probably have unhealthy in body. You also unhealthy in your mind. And you probably have horrible coping skills, if at all, to be able to overcome little slights, traffic delays, things like that raise your blood pressure and all those things. All of these are compounded. You can get money, you can get a paycheck, and you can solve like, okay, I won't be homeless. But you still have all these other issues that poverty has induced and compounded that you have to deal with, that just throwing money at a bill is not going to solve. So for those women, I want to say, like, once those needs are provided, because they're looking at it as a joint effort and they're not expecting it just from him, but they're also not tripping in that most of it comes from them, because they're looking at the situation like, this is a family. As a family, we're taking care of each other. Things are getting taken care of. So all that extra pressure that didn't even really need to exist, all this social anxiety pressure, they can genuinely be happy with each other. They probably don't fight as much, because the bills are getting paid no matter who pays them, right? Like, okay, let me ask you, do you feel like you and your husband need to have a separate joint account?
No.
A lot of people would say that they have to have a separate joint account.
Separate?
Like, there has to be, so they have a joint account, but then they have to have separate accounts.
No, I feel like, look, if we in this thing, our money, our income kind of goes in this joint bulk account that has our names on it. I don't want to think about marriage where you have your own account and the other person have their own account. And there are some people in my life who are older and would say, well, for your safety, you don't know privacy. Yeah. You don't know what could happen in the future. Have a little something in the bank just in case. And it's like, I get that fear, but I do want to marry for love. I do want to trust and feel like, okay, my husband is yes, people could change over time. You never know what could happen. But going into it, I want that joint togetherness, that real unity.
I feel like having it, and I agree with you, I feel like having it is needed to keep your foot on each other's neck, to be like, because there's no escape plan. And if you're messing up, you're going to both drown. And it keeps you on your toes to be like, my biggest thing is, like, with a person I'm looking for is, I need somebody that's not running away. Like, we both in this. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can't tell you how we're going to change. I know we're going to change. All these little
part of life. You get older, your
fortune cookie
mindset evolve.
I just know that I'm the type of person, when I'm in it with you, I'm fighting with you. It's just like with family. Yeah. It's just like you can't run away from it, and you have to figure out a way to get through it. So having escape plans is smart. Now, if we were in a different culture and different time, if I'm in Syria or even in America in harsh conditions where that type of subjugation is readily happening to me, then yes. Because marriage in itself wasn't probably about love. It was about property exchange, right? And you probably didn't want to be married in the first place. So yeah, that's gonna be part of your mindset. But I'm not in that situation, so I don't feel like I need to consider those things. Right now, if we talking about second marriage, then hell yeah, because I done been through. I done right. But this is my first marriage.
Nigga, here's this prenup. Sign it.
So I just feel like you're setting intentions. And it's not to be naive about something, because if I feel like I'm about to marry this person and I can't be at least at the beginning. I'm not saying you in the marriage and stuff is like you done got bamboozled. I'm talking about at the beginning, but you still have a choice to say yes or walk away, and you unsure. Bloop. You should just not be marrying that person. And you shouldn't be, well, let me just put something to the side just in case, because I'm only 95% about him. No, that's where you messed up right there. Like, you should have just been together. I'm not even saying you leave the person. I'm just saying you shouldn't have got married, because if you need to have escape funds, I can see if you wanted it for like a privacy thing, because everything doesn't have to be together. But finances are just so I don't think those things can be private. And if they are private, then it turns into something that's ugly.
Then it's like, oh, you kept this away from me.
Mm-hmm.
You have this dark secret. Yeah, it's
gotta
be
never
messy.
be private for a good reason. Like, oh, I'm just saving for life insurance. I'm saving this the money that's going into our life insurance fund.
Okay, how come I don't see it either?
Nah, he going on trips. He buying stuff that you're not supposed to know, and that's a problem, right? Because if you're mismanaging your funds for the family, you know, like, because if you're my husband and you want a big screen TV, and I can disagree with you all day, but you really want that big screen TV, then buy it with your chest. Don't sneak out.
Yeah, don't sneak out
and get it. Well, I have my own savings account. What you mean, our savings account?
So you have your own.
My name don't even got to be on it, boo. My name just got to be on a marriage certificate when I slide into the bank.
Yeah, I'm his wife. Slide it over.
I need all the statements. Cause he like,
ma'am, your name is not on the account.
It don't matter.
I'm his wife. Ma'am, I don't see
the certificate.
I'm his wife.
It always supersedes all of these other signatures that you shouldn't have got. I was at work. My bad. We didn't get around to it. But you know what I'm saying? Let's say like, that's the type of communication that's what marriage to me, and this is someone who's never been married, right? But then we all come into it with our perspectives. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen and heard and listened to other relationship people talking about what they should have done, what they wish they would have done. It's just like, do it with your chest. You still gonna do it. You want to do it. If I'm gonna disagree with you, I'm gonna disagree with you about that TV, whether you got it from the account that I saw or not. I see the TV. It came from somewhere.
So you went to Best Buy this morning? Oh, okay.
The same thing if I wanted some shoes and he said I've been having too much, because it's always a deeper root issue. It's about being able to say, first of all, why am I against the TV in the first place, right? Is it because I really don't care that he has a TV, or is it because we were probably trying to save for something, mm-hmm. and that TV was an unnecessary expense, considering the depreciation on TVs, that's not a thing, right? And you know, bought this 60,000, this 75-inch TV.
But babe, it looks good.
When we had a 55-inch, but we just said we needed to save for something. It always goes to that. It has nothing to do with the TV or you want a TV. Mm-hmm. It has that there was a goal that we couldn't agree on, but that was important, or you probably did agree on verbally, but your actions not backing it up. Same as if it was me. If we said we needed to save more for our 401ks, and I'm out here buying shoes, and you know I like expensive taste, and it's 150 here, 200 here, then I'm going against the goal that we have for our family, and so that's our family.
I do want to talk about, for our final topic, Summer Walker and her. I'm gonna go to my page now. So she apparently has social anxiety, and this is something that she has been not struggling with, but like she has experienced this like throughout her life. And it's just so interesting because she is a performer. She is a well-known singer now. Well, not well, but, you know, well enough amongst the Black community where it's strange. How are you able to have this record deal? How are you able to have this hit single and then be afraid to go on stage? What is social anxiety? And there's a lot of talk about the legitimacy of anxiety, the legitimacy of being like, people don't recognize that. I'm not big on saying disorder, but it is something that you have to actively tell yourself, okay, things will be all right, because anxiety is real, especially social anxiety. So I just think it's interesting how is she able to kind of find balance, or is she finding balance by being a performer and yet struggling to converse? Like,
because people have gifts in certain ways they show up out, but then there's also other responsibilities that their gifts can show up in the studio fine, mm-hmm. right? But then there's these other responsibilities that belong on that being a singer or being a performer in the spotlight, that okay, now that social anxiety kicks in more. It's not even that you're not ever without that anxiety. She probably deals with it going to the grocery store. But you have to find, she has certain coping skills for those environments, and this is a new space for her. She's still a new artist. A whole bunch of performers have social anxiety. And so they have to find different coping spaces for the different spaces that they're in, and she just hasn't found that yet.
She hasn't found that,
so,
and that's a good point.
And so it's not about that she, just because she has it at all, she shouldn't be able to do these things. No, she's probably actively, and she has to, if she wants to be able to do it and be able to do it successfully, find a coping mechanism that can allow her to be successful in the spotlight, because in the studio she already has one.
That's a good point, because there's a lot that, like you said, there are a lot of artists who do have social anxiety, and they do
a lot
cope
of
with
performers
it
stage,
differently, right? By doing drugs, by being an addict of some sort. And I'm great. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't have that disease. Maybe she doesn't have that addiction yet. I hope she doesn't, of course. But that could explain why she is so vocal about saying that. And you could see it clearly in her interviews, because she's not this extrovert and this
her
loud
singing conveys.
Yeah,
this very fun, bubbly
it's totally
girl.
different. So I just think I don't know. I think it's interesting, because oftentimes a lot of people like to say, oh, in order to be successful, you have to be this extrovert, you have to be this super outgoing, super charismatic person. It's like, well, no, you could still have a successful life, whatever success means to you, and be who you are. And whether who you are is naturally extroverted, cool. But if it's not, then I don't want to down the introverts out there, because I could be introverted sometimes, and then I wonder, well, man, can I not achieve that level of success, whatever that means to me, if I'm not more outgoing, if I don't go out to every party, if I don't talk to 10 people a day at the party that I go to, this function that I go to. And it's like, no, we have to stop kind of thinking success looks one way. And
I think that's what people are only seeing what's presented. They're not seeing the preparation that got them there. So then you're not looking at the amount of work Beyonce does to get prepared for a show. That type of preparation is what helps with anxiety. Like, all of these stars, more so than not, you end up finding out most of the times after a tragedy, they deal with chronic drug issues, chronic, issues to numb things. Like, they had a lot of times they're using benzos and all these things for anxiety, and they can't sleep. And that's because it shouldn't even be why Summer isn't thriving in that place. It's that nobody actually really just naturally thrives in that place. Like, by nobody, I mean a very small amount of people. Some people, they need some type of supplement, some type of, it could be a ritual. That's what we have. We have sports teams that do certain rituals that they have to do to get mental visualization. Like, all those things are coping mechanisms for anxiety, for stress, for being able to perform at a rate that most people don't perform on anyway, which is why we covet celebrity so much, because they're doing these things and they're being out there.
It's so wild to us.
And you're like, how could you deal with it? Well, they're dealing with it in a way that you can't see, but they are. Summer, the difference is, like you're saying, Summer is boldly putting out there, and part of her anxiety is that she's just being transparent. She didn't feel like she needed to lie about it. Because just like we were talking about women's rights and the way we are owning our bodies more, mental illness, especially in the Black community, anxiety is a DSM-5. It is a disorder, and it is an anxiety disorder. There's generalized. You can PTSD is one of the most severe ones, but just generalized social anxiety, just like run of the mill. There's not really a specific situation or phobia that causes your anxiety. It's just like being around people, having a lot of stimulus can really impair you. And the way that you get over that is usually, cognitive behavioral therapy. And what they teach you to do is, one, recognize those triggers, and then okay, so I'm about to go in a room full of people. Here are the coping skills that help someone like me kind of overcome this panic or whatever your anxiety feels like. That could be hyping yourself up in a car and repeating affirmations. How many women, so you saw that show, Being Mary Jane? Yeah. And one of the biggest
oh yeah,
things Black women come from, that they're posting these affirmation post-it notes, right? That is a coping mechanism. She has an anxiety, right?
That's
the whole show was about social anxiety.
Did she name that? I forget. Did she actually say I have anxiety? Because she does do those things.
No, but those are things. This is just my knowledge of coping.
Because that's your field,
right? Those are all those things. That's all it is. Wow. She has social anxiety with her job. Yes. The whole panda suit, Black metaphor. We put on this suit. Can you be? That's a form of anxiety, because you can't just naturally perform in your authentic self. Yeah. You have to create a literal mask.
This
and
double
it's so
consciousness.
prolific in our our culture that we laugh about it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say a word. You post a meme that it's the meme of, I think it's the Family Guy, and he's coming out of a dog suit or something like that, and it's a guy, and they use it as a joke between black people, like, me when I clock out at 5 o'clock or some shit like that. That is a form of anxiety, right? So it's one about this judgment of what anxiety looks like and what it's not, because you're not naming it. Anything that you have to do to alter yourself, your authentic self, you are be anxious about it for some reason.
Oh, there's even one. There's another meme when the black woman, she's in the job interview, her hair's in a bun.
Oh yeah,
she gets a job, she has an afro.
Or no, they have one with Shannon Sharp when he's in a suit, and then one when he was on the episode when he was drinking Hennessy with the do-rag. And they were like, me when I got the interview, me 6 weeks later on probation. Like, you don't get this real nigga. Like,
Look, I'm on the clock.
So the thing is, like, and anxiety doesn't
nigga.
be super negative. It can be like you're hypermanic. You can be just too euphoric to where you are just you're not anything you're not able to perform. If you're super manic, you can't focus. Like, it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a negative feeling. You're not necessarily depressed, but you're not level. You're not neutral to where you can focus on one thing and you can perform. So if we're talking about performance in any type of manner, just going outside of your house, she had to look a certain way. She had to be a certain way. She put Post-its on her mirror. I know people who have things that's written on their mirrors. I have something written on my mirror.
Yeah.
That is a form of that's anxiety that you're using
absolutely
to supplement the Bible verses.
Yeah.
You're anxious. Don't be anxious for anything. Why do you think Jesus talked about it?
Yeah, it's real. It is real.
And so they're just judging her. One is sometimes it's just ignorance, because they're like, oh, well, dang, I didn't know that was anxiety, because we don't like to name things. So then we have to name things. You have to like.
They were like, this is your favorite artist, because they were judging like one of her performances.
I thought you was gonna talk about because she doesn't. So part of that is right. She says she doesn't really like to take showers. She literally said this on a Twitter post. She had a bowl. And it was filled up. It had like, Dr. Teal's. It had some good stuff in there. She wasn't even using like dollar store brand.
She preferred baths. She
preferred wipe down. And she said,
she
said, I'm weird. I'm weird that way. Now everybody calling her dirty and musty. She
but
literally had soap in there.
But it's even before she said that though, because she's done posts where she'll lick off her tattoo makeup. And like was like, she's dating it's London on the track, that dude. Yeah. And like she breathed on him. And
why are you talking about? I'm out here single. Ain't nobody licking my saliva down chest.
Go ahead and breathe on my neck.
London on the track is out here licking all that extra saliva with not a word.
So there is that. I mean, I think she did create that for herself. It's just interesting because like,
you'd be surprised. Bathing habits is one of the number one things. Like, especially like say with another disorder. And I don't want to make social anxiety seem like she's super impaired and it's something evil. Like, I like to talk about, because they are normalized. People go through these things for seasons, times, just even like just situational. But being able to bathe yourself, people, it's so in America. Outside of America, people don't bathe like that, first of all. But in America, because it's so associated with class and with status and with being able to be clean and smell good, like when you don't do those things, right? Twice a day showers, one in the morning, one at night, then something's wrong with you. And people who are depressed or have really, really severe, it's very hard for them to get up and take a shower. Mm-hmm. It's in your mind, you're like, it's simple. Just throw the water on, throw the soap on. It's not that hard, but it is hard. No, but I can't tell you why it's hard for people to get up and just take a bath. But it's more of a bigger overall look of just taking care of yourself. Like, it takes more energy than people think, because it's not a conscious effort. It's just something that they've routinely done their entire lives, like brushing your teeth. And but when you don't brush your teeth, because it's unnatural for you to go out of routine. Like,
right, that's a bigger deal. But I feel like oftentimes people who are depressed or are anxious, they don't do what seems normal for us to shower or whatever. They don't do that because it's like, well, why? What's the point? So what?
Exactly.
They have this negative mindset about life already, and it's like, what is the shower gonna do about this situation that I'm going through? Is me showering gonna get my relationship back in order? Is me showering gonna make me happy again? Is me showering gonna get my father back in my life? Like, there's people connected to those things, so I get it. I also just feel like we have to be more compassionate when it comes to anxiety, and we have to stop thinking, oh, people are just doing it for attention. Oh, now someone else got this mental disorder, someone else got this. No, it's just normal. Like, we have to recognize we all deal with things differently, and like,
I think it comes from your background of things. I think I've never been a person to shy away from whatever it is, even if it's bad or good. Me trying to label it something else isn't gonna help me. I need to call a thing a thing. Call a spade a spade.
Absolutely.
And it's not that I'm just automatically overjoyed at what that spade is called, but I've never just been the one to be able to like just kind of like mask it. And some people have, and that's a coping mechanism too, to be able to try to call something else so that you don't have to really deal with it.
Put it under the rug.
It all comes back to like community. I think.
Hey Ashley, that's
my
true.
friend. Hey Ashley, boo, how you doing? So
what's true? We said a lot of stuff. Which part? Let us know.
So when you just said like people taking care of themselves, they said, well, why? Because you got to think of what is a catastrophe. People are taking these social showers and stuff. It's for the benefit of themselves. Yes, hygiene is important for you.
Yeah.
But you don't notice it until you have someone else in your space or you're in someone else's space. Right? And people can actually do it as self-sabotage, because if they don't take a bath, they don't have to go out and do those things because now they're not presentable. So like Summer would never have no problem. Summer would have been out here bathless and y'all wouldn't know.
We wouldn't know.
You wouldn't have known. Sometimes, or it could be she just does not like showers. She likes bird baths. Here's the thing, I grew up and we had our water shut up a lot of times. We're not gonna sit here and talk about it.
Same here.
You ain't dipped to know how to go put a bucket. We had to get a bucket and go get some water from.
I am familiar with the bird bath. Okay.
Now this is because she chooses to do it daily, but is she cleaning the right spots? I mean, because she don't shower.
Ultimately, that is the most essential spot. You have your underarms. You have your boo-boo.
She's cleaning herself.
You're good to go.
She has good hygiene. She's just not dousing herself in water, and that's where the compassion and the judgment comes from. Because it's not about her being clean. Because if it was about her being clean, we wouldn't see her with this bowl of luxurious soaps.
But like you were saying earlier, Americans do have this kind of warped mindset of showering and hygiene.
That's why our bathrooms gotta look like freaking master bedrooms, and you in the shower for 10 minutes.
Do we have running water? Like, I'm in and out. I get my stuff done. I gotta go. And I remember this guy told me, yeah, I shower about like 3-4 times a day. I'm like, are you that dirty? For what? Like,
I have a friend who has to
shower. You have a disorder. No, that's a disorder.
No, and that's the thing is
OCD ass nigga. No, I gotta go. Talk about 5 times a day.
You gotta be careful about like this. I'm just like, I'll always look at the root of something. Like, is she cleaning herself? She's cleaning herself. She cleaning herself regularly. Now the spit thing.
Yeah, she did that to herself there. Like, girl,
but then
do that in private.
But hold on, we see mamas use they spit to clean their children.
Right.
Hey, no, hold on. Follow me though.
Here we go, Alicia. What is it? Go ahead, continue. I was trying to read.
Do they not do that? And it's shown as a term of endearment.
Yeah, but when they're babies,
but
not a grown ass woman.
But here we're not talking about who's doing it. We're talking about, does the function of saliva clean? You gotta break it down.
It's wet. Of course, you gotta clean. Does the function of
dirt? Does it remove it?
It remains the scent of your breath, and that's not okay.
But I'm just saying, if you really want to break it down and get hotepish with it.
Hotepish.
If you saw mother
I hate a hotep nigga. Can we talk about them?
Doing it, you would be like, oh my God, she's doing so good as a mom. She's making sure her baby cleans. Be damned, she's doing it by any means necessary. And that's Summer Walker she stuck to that idea. She didn't move on. She said, hey, this is how my mama cleaned me. I choose to continue to accept this as a version of being clean. Who knows if she went back after and got something? She could have been taken out for a moment. We don't know. Now I'm playing.
I guess, but don't film it.
Do it.
Don't film it.
That is true.
That's
because
TMI,
Black Twitter exists.
But whatever. We're gonna wrap up. This was great, Alicia. We gotta do this again. Dead ass.
Call me.
I'm so happy I had you on.
Y'all give us some feedback. Don't be too mean though, because I'm sensitive. This is my first time. I was a little excited. Okay.
No, you were great. You were natural. This is great. We definitely gotta do this again. Thank you. Yay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in. All right, bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of God Built This podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud, and also leave a comment. God bless.